So this past weekend, I talked about loving God. And we talked about how the Lord has called us to give everything to Him. We saw the example in Mark 12 of people giving tithes and offerings to the Lord. And then there was this one person, and they came up, and what they gave only amounted to about a penny, but in light of their circumstances and the resources that God had allowed them, it was an abundant amount more than what many of the others were giving. And we saw that example of where God would look at us and say, "Are you giving more? Because I gave it all for you." And I use that example to call us as a church to say, loving God is actually the starting point for everything else in our lives. And what I want to see you and I do today, you and I do in the days to come, is to connect with each other, to connect in community groups. I heard a pastor say one time at a really large church, and he was actually my father's pastor for many years, and he'd stand up in front of the thousands in his congregation and he'd say, "Hey, if you're in here this morning, I appreciate you being here. But if you're not a part of a small group, if you're not plugged in with other believers and other people, then over time, maybe in a year or so, you're not going to be here anymore." Because at the end of the day, this Sunday morning gathering, as he spoke, is only just one piece of the puzzle. It's only one cog in the wheel, so to speak, of your walk with Jesus. What He wants us to do, what the Lord wants us to do, what this pastor would call us to do, and what I would call you to do, is to get plugged in with other believers. Sure, you've got people in your life, maybe on the ball field, maybe at work, maybe in your kids' school, whatever that looks like. But what God has called you to is this church. And so I would call you, if He's called you to this church, I would call you to plant yourself in this church, to be a part of the family here, and to get to know others. So get to know me, get to know my family, get to know other families in our church. We want to grow together. We want to connect with you. So will you connect with me through community groups? Will you serve with me in community groups? Will you join a community group?